called a witch is an insult, but for some, it's something to take pride in. In recent years, more and more people in Southern California identify themselves as witches. In today's Column 1, Deborah Netburn wrote about how witches have joined a thriving community in Los Angeles and how today's working witches make a living. Deborah, can I just tell you, this is my favorite story of the week.
Oh, thank you so much.
I mean, witches, they're strong, they're thriving in Southern California. Why?
I mean, part of it is they're empowering women, which I feel like is really exciting. I personally feel like the world needs witches right now. We're at a time where people are losing faith in a lot of our institutions, and I think people are just looking for something to believe in. And
well, do us a favor and define witch, okay? Because we all remember, the history, Salem witch trials, right?
Yeah.
And witches were identified with, the dark arts and with Satan and all sorts of really, evil things. What did they define themselves as?
So these witches mostly see themselves as healers, I'd say. Healers and counselors, and I would say almost like spiritual life coaches is how I would put it.
And what sorts of services do they provide people?
Different people offer different services. So some people are herbalists. They work with herbs. Some do tarot card readings. Some do body work, Reiki, Qigong. So it really runs the gamut.
And how much are they charging for these services?
It depends, but it's usually not cheap. I'd say $150 to $200 for an hour.
And that's for a session of, it could be a psychic reading, or it could be a coaching session, right?
Yeah, all kinds of things. I mean, one thing I thought was interesting is the idea of creating sacred space. So maybe you would go to a witch's office or home, and she'll ring a bell. You're the sound is different. She lights incense. The smell is different. You kind of start relaxing. Maybe you smell an essential oil. I think they're able to kind of take you out of your regular life and put you into this other space.
It sounds like they're crossing over, though, into that healing arts area, right? Where so there are people who specialize in private meditation, right?
Yeah.
And spiritual healing. Is it getting into that territory?
I would say it's definitely that territory.
You talked about one woman in particular, the Oracle of Los Angeles. Who is she? What's her story?
Yeah, so her name is Amanda Yates Garcia. She's been a witch for 8 years, and she's actually a hereditary witch, which means her mom was a witch as well. And she has a history. She's done a lot of different things in her life, but she is a very, powerful person to meet. And she has, so part of what she does is meet with clients individually. She also teaches at universities, she teaches at museums, and she has a book coming out.
And she has a huge social media presence.
Yes, social media is an important portal for these people to find clients. I was thinking about how LA is dotted with, neon signs that say psychic, tarot card reader, but you don't really know who you're going to get if you walk through those doors. If you follow a witch on social media, you can sort of get a sense of who she is, what she's into.
You're pre-screening her.
You're pre-screening her. You're getting a sense of her aesthetic sensibility, and you start to think, is this someone who can help me or not?
And there's been a real proof of all of this popularity in numbers. There was a 2017 survey from Pew Research, and what did it say?
Yeah, so that looked at New Age beliefs in America. So they found that 40% of Americans believe in psychics, 40% believe that inanimate objects can be imbued with spiritual energy like mountains or trees. I think 29% of people believe in astrology. So, and overall 60% of Americans believe in one of these New Age beliefs. So I think actually seeing a witch may not be as fringe as we might think it is.
Yeah, I think sometimes just the name witch maybe gives them a bad rep.
I would say that maybe among a younger generation of people, they're kind of reclaiming the word witch, and so they're really seeing it as a strong woman, maybe an elder, someone who has wisdom to share.
Well, that was the history too, wasn't it? I mean, there were women who owned that word, and the rise of Christianity helped squelch that, right?
Yes, there's really a long history of anti-witch sentiment, which I think you could probably say is anti-woman sentiment.
Right. In some cultures, they had knowledge about herbs and things that made them more powerful than the average person walking down the street.
Yeah, I mean, I have a friend who grew up in Mexico, and she was actually a little nervous about the word witch when I was talking. She's like, oh, it sounds sketchy. But then she was remembering going to see like a woman on the edge of her village who would maybe take an egg and put it over her to take out the bad energy. So I don't really think these female spiritual healers have ever gone away, but it's kind of exciting that they're having a moment now.
It is. I do want to say one thing though. There was a scam. Tell people what that was about, real quick, because we want to make sure that they find a reputable witch.
There's a few, but one recent one was a blessing scam. So these scammers would come up mostly to older people in immigrant communities and say, a curse is going to befall on your family unless you bring me your money and your valuables and I'll bless them for you.
$7,000 fee for that,
yes,
right?
Yeah, and so they and in this one instance, this woman put all her value, I think it was $70,000 worth of money into a bag, handed it over. They gave it back, said don't open it for 3 days. When she opened it, it was just newspaper. So
there are scams. So use Instagram and vet your witches.
Yes, proceed with caution.
Thanks, Deb.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
To read Deborah's column 1, log on to latimes.com. Up next, a look back at this day in history.